for the average person to actually discern the difference between Joel Parkinson, Mick Fanning, Gabriel Medina, Kelly Slater's boards, they can't tell the difference. But clearly back in our time, I mean, you had Fitzy on these just like rocket ships. You know, you had me riding the Diamond Tail, single fins. You had MP riding Stubby with big fins in them, and then you had MR on his twin fins. I mean, you couldn't get it more diverse. And the Stingers, I mean, it was completely all over the place. And in amongst all that, I was the first one in Australia to make the Bonzer. I built the first Bonzer off drawings Mike Eaton sent me, handwritten letter. This is how to make one. I made it at good time, which I don't know if you've ever heard that story. So I have the letter pinned on the wall in the shaping bay at good time, and MP shaped in the bay beside me. And he came in, and I'm right at the point where I'm doing the concaves in the back of the tail, and he looks over the bay because the bays weren't separated, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm going, "I'm making this new board." He said, "Have you been smoking something?" I go, "No." I go, "This is this new design." He says, "I don't know about that, PT." What's really funny about that is I won the Newcastle contest on that board, and it's one of the few times I beat MP, because I came second to him more times than I want to tell you. Well, you know, Mike Eaton had built some of my early boards in Hawaii. I mean, when I got in the Duke finals the first year I was there in '72, I got in fourth in the Duke, which was huge, you know, for an Australian to get at Sunset in the finals of the Duke and get, you know, pretty high placing. And so I had made a real good friendship with Mike, and then the Campbell brothers had developed the concept, and they went to Bing, and Mike was the head shaper of Bing Surfboards. And he just sent me a letter. In those days there was no internet and none of that, so I get this letter in the mail. I have the original letter still with the hand drawings of how to make a Bonzer, and I went, "Oh, I'm into this, I'll go try this out." Because I had seen already the ads were in the American magazines, so I went and made that first one, and you know, lo and behold, it went really fast. And then we went to Newcastle, and I think we had it round at Nobby's, and it was this little beach break which you needed this to get from the outside to the inside, and because of the way the concave was in the bottom, and at that point nobody was riding concave, I was just skimming across that section to the inside, and I won the contest, you know. And so of course that was at the same time when my relationship had developed as a rider for GNS in Sydney and Cronulla, and we went down, and of course we put the Bonzer into production, and we made a lot of them, you know. Terry Snake Bishop was fantastic shaper down there, and we were the #1 exponent of the Bonzers. And then Richo in Wollongong picked up on it, and I stayed on Bonzers. I had Bonzers for quite a long time, you know, like the middle '70s. I was still, you know, I made a couple for Hawaii, and then I really got more into my own more refined diamond tail shape, being influenced by Hawaii, by Tom Parrish. I started to make my boards a little bit more refined. Like the ones that I ride in Hawaii, only built for the smaller conditions of Australia. I was really open-minded, I mean, to the design, just like I had mentioned the influence of David Bowie and his music, and just like my surfing, I was open-minded to design concepts. After I'd finished at Joe Larkin's, I went to work for Dick Van Stralen, which is when I really learned to be a great shaper and realised how to use my tools, and I wasn't scared of trying new stuff. And an interesting one was that I had lost in the finals of the ISA World Contest, the last of the old schools in '72, to the Fish. Jimmy Blears and Nueva rode Fish, and I rode a board made by Tracy Richmond, who was an American living with Gordon Merchant. I was going to America, I'd go, I'm going to get someone from America to make me a board for California. It turned out that was the board. Everybody else was digging rails and not going anywhere, and my board worked unreal and helped me get to the final. So later on, I saw this unreal photo of Mike Tabling, great surfer from Florida that unfortunately we just lost. He just passed away 10 days ago. Incredible cutback photo, and Mike was Nat Young size, right? And he's just flying on this thing, and I went, maybe I should think about making one of those. And then I went to California to visit GNS California, and Mike Eaton was there at the time. They had now moved the manufacturing of Bing to GNS, and he was making some Bonzers, but in the bay next to him was Skip Fry, and Skip was making a fish. And I didn't know Skip at that time, and Mike introduced me, and I just asked him, as Shaper start talking, and he explained the whole thing. And he gave me some dimensions, and I went back to GNS in Sydney and made the first fish, which was the one I rode in the Coke contest in '75, and I still have that board. I still have that one. That was arguably one of the first fishes in Australia. Only I didn't make it with twin fins. I made it with 3 fins. It had a big single, like the way I would ride in my normal single, and half moon fins on the rails, like Reno and Brewer had been messing around with in the early '70s. And then fish became a real... I've been on fish-inspired designs as part of the quiver, not the... And I rarely ever rode them in competition. It was more for free surfing. And you know, because the competitive thing, you have to ride a certain kind of... At least we did in those days, a certain kind of board to get the scores you needed.